Translator, Reverie Score. Editor Kung Han stepped into the village. It resembled a burial ground beneath the heavens, steeped in a deathly stillness. Not the faintest stir of movement could be discerned. "It's too quiet," Qin Lian Yue whispered, her gaze repeatedly sweeping toward the corners untouched by moonlight, as though some fiendish creature might at any moment spring forth from those dark and sinister recesses. "No breathing, and no heartbeat," Zhuchuan Er said gravely. For martial artists of their realm, the rhythm of breath and the pulse of a heart could be detected even across several hundred meters and through layers of walls. Such perception was effortless. Yet now, none of these sounds existed, and there was not even the slightest barking of dogs, nor the faint clucking of chickens. It was as though this village had been deserted for countless years. Yet plainly visible were strings of dried corn cobs and scarlet peppers hanging beneath eaves, proof that people had dwelled here not long ago, perhaps even as recently as the day before. Strange! Everyone sensed that something was gravely amiss. Ye Rong strolled over as well, unable to suppress a sneer. "It's only a mortal's village. What's there to make a fuss about?" No one paid him any heed. On the contrary, their curiosity only deepened. Ling Han pushed open a wooden door and entered. The furnishings of the house remained intact. Several dishes still rested upon the table. Though now cold, they had not yet spoiled. By scent alone, one could tell they had not turned rancid. What catastrophe had erupted so suddenly as to wipe out the entire village? Even the livestock had vanished without a trace. After searching this room, Ling Han moved into another. Here the scene was far more chaotic, bearing unmistakable signs of struggle. Fresh blood stained both walls and floor, presenting a ghastly spectacle. A conflict took place, but the scale wasn't large. Likely just a dispute between mortals, Qin Lian Yu deduced. But what exactly happened that actually involved the entire village and even livestock? This was deeply perplexing. Even if two people fought, it was impossible for the entire village to be dragged into it, much less the chickens and dogs suffering the same fate. Ling Han advanced into the inner chambers and suddenly halted. Hong, a black shadow, abruptly shot forth and lunged at Ling Han. Its arms spread wide as if to embrace him, yet its mouth gaped open, revealing ghastly white fangs aimed straight for his throat. "Humph! A mere mortal even dares to assault people?" Ye Rong said with disdain. He flicked a finger of his right hand, and the figure was instantly knocked backward, blood bursting from its forehead. Ling Han was startled. With a flick of his right hand, origin power transformed into flames, illuminating the surroundings. It was indeed a villager. A bloody cavity pierced through its forehead. Yet the blood had not splattered everywhere. It was merely a hole from which dark, blackened blood slowly oozed. "What's there to look at?" Ye Rong said irritably. The medicinal valley lay close at hand. Why waste time here? "This is a corpse soldier." Ling Han frowned. This person had long since died. The blood had already coagulated. Without proper tempering, corpse soldiers retained only their most primitive instincts: slaughter and devour the flesh of living beings. Evidently, the village's livestock had been consumed by these villagers who had transformed into corpse soldiers. Most of them had likely entered the surrounding mountains and forests to continue their hunt for sustenance. This one had remained concealed within the room. Undisturbed, it would lie inert like an ordinary corpse. But upon sensing the presence of the living, it stirred once more. The mystery unraveled, and everyone exhaled in relief. The unknown was the most terrifying. Now that they understood what confronted them, their hearts settled. "Strange, why are there corpse soldiers here? Could it be the Thousand Corpse Sect's doing?" Ling Han muttered. Not long ago, the Thousand Corpse Sect had acted with alarming boldness, besieging Million Treasures City with the Fourth Killing Formation. Had it not been for Feng Po Yun's sudden appearance, Million Treasures City would most likely have fallen into the Thousand Corpse Sect's grasp. He had a premonition that the Thousand Corpse Sect, which had long conducted itself in secrecy and restraint, would in this lifetime rise completely and abruptly. This was both the best age and the worst age for such a sect. Nothing more than low-level corpse soldiers. Ye Rong clearly recognized them. He was not merely arrogant without knowledge. Ling Han searched the entire village. There were 5 corpse soldiers in total. To his surprise, 2 among them were noticeably stronger than the others. They had likely devoured fellow corpse soldiers and thereby increased their strength. At the Fallen Moon Gorge, Ling Han had once thwarted the Thousand Corpse Sect's scheme. They had intended to use medicinal pills to transform the entire population of the desolate north into corpse soldiers, who would then devour one another to nurture a corpse king. Could the Thousand Corpse Sect now dare to act so recklessly, even within the Middle State? In terms of sheer population, the Middle State possessed more than enough to foster numerous corpse kings. Yet would the Absolute Saber Sect, the Heaven's Sword Sect, and other superforces truly permit the Thousand Corpse Sect to rampage unchecked? This world was destined for upheaval. They set out once more and passed several small villages. In each, every inhabitant had likewise transformed into a corpse soldier. Faced with such a sight, even Qin Lianyu and Ye Rong grew solemn. What was the Thousand Corpse Sect plotting? They encountered no disciples of the Thousand Corpse Sect. Already deep within the mountain forests, they soon arrived at a secluded valley under Qin Lianyu's guidance. It was extremely remote. The entrance was concealed by a towering firmament tree. Unless one deliberately climbed up to investigate, it would be impossible to discover. Beyond the entrance lay a long, narrow passage through the valley, cramped and constricted. Yet after walking more than 30 meters, it gradually widened. Overhead, layers of jutting rock concealed the space below. Even one flying overhead would assume it to be a continuous stretch of mountain. Who could suspect that beneath it lay a hidden hollow? Rays of light filtered down through some mysterious refraction. Though not bright, they were sufficient to illuminate one's surroundings. After proceeding further, the true mountain valley revealed itself. As expected, at the valley's entrance stood a seventh-tier spirit tree. It was a peach tree, bearing numerous glowing crimson fruits, each the size of a bowl's rim, their alluring fragrance wafted from afar. Everyone's fingers twitched, longing to pluck a fruit at once and taste it. Hu Nu's saliva nearly dripped onto the ground. Yet no one dared act rashly, for at the valley entrance crouched a crimson mountain leopard. Across its back were 9 vein-like patterns, each the size of a fist. Gray patterned leopard, a spiritual infant-tier beast. The vein-like markings upon its back denoted its level. 9th layer. Spiritual infant-tier beasts were generally far stronger than ordinary 9th layer spiritual infant-tier martial artists. Their hides were thick as forged armor, and their claws and fangs rivaled rare metals of the same tier, surpassing human counterparts in both destructive might and defensive resilience. Why is it a 9th layer spiritual infant-tier beast? Ye Rong frowned. Though he prided himself on being rarely matched within the same tier, once confronted with a spiritual infant-tier opponent, it was already game over, let alone this 9th layer spiritual infant-tier beast. Though the spirit fruits lay before them, they could only gaze upon them helplessly. Ling Han, however, was overjoyed. If this peach tree could be stored within the Black Tower, there would be an unending supply of 7th-tier spirit peaches to consume. Translator, Kurisu. What is to be done? With a 9th layer spiritual infant-tier beast guarding this place, harvesting the spirit peaches is utterly impossible. Ye Rong fretted to himself, his brows tightly knit. In his eyes, Chu Hao and the rest were nothing but burdens, and aside from himself, there was no true expert among them to rely upon. Otherwise, why had he alone been granted direct admission into Restore Heaven Academy? Was that not tantamount to the word expert being emblazoned upon his very countenance? Those who had failed to obtain such qualifications were clearly nothing but dregs. Did a master require the counsel of mediocrities? Absolutely not. After pondering for a moment, he declared, "I shall lure away that gray-patterned leopard. You all seize the chance to pluck the spirit peaches. Gather as many as you can, and later we shall rendezvous at the small village 35 kilometers away." Ling Han remained utterly unconcerned. Smiling faintly, he cupped his hands and said, "Then we must trouble Brother Ye." Ye Rong assumed a look as though this arrangement were only proper and natural, yet he felt somewhat displeased within. These people would reap a share of the spirit peaches without lifting a finger. Were it not for Qin Lianyue's sake, he would have long since driven the others away. The group leapt up and concealed themselves amidst the cliffs and crags. Ye Rong strode forth alone, stooping to pick up a stone and infusing it with origin power. As his martial intent surged forth, the stone seemed to transform into a spirit tool, radiating dazzling brilliance. With a thunderous shout, he hurled the rock. Shoo! A streak of light tore through the air toward the gray-patterned leopard. Pah! The stone smashed squarely against the gray-patterned leopard's head. Had it been a spiritual infant-tier martial artist, struck thus without activating origin power, their skull would have burst apart. Yet the gray-patterned leopard was a beast born with thick hide and iron bones. Though it would not dare to meet head-on an opponent of the same tier, an attack from one at the flower blossom tier, crashing upon its body, was nothing more than a trifling annoyance. It merely shook its head, then rose upon its four limbs, scanning left and right as though seeking the reckless fool who had dared assail it. Shoo! Yerong cast another stone. This time, the gray-patterned leopard did not receive it so bluntly. With a casual sweep of its claw, it shattered the incoming rock. Fury ignited in its eyes. In an instant, power surged through its four limbs, and it shot toward Yerong with terrifying speed. Yerong turned and fled at once. However, confident he might be, he would never dare to battle a peak-stage spiritual infant-tier beast head-on. After sprinting several steps, he glanced back and nearly lost his soul. The gray-patterned leopard's speed was far beyond what was normal for the spiritual infant tier. The distance between them shrank at a terrifying pace. Damn it, he cursed. With a pained expression, he withdrew a spirit talisman from his spatial ring, yet without hesitation affixed it to his body. In a flash of white light, his figure was enveloped and his speed soared dramatically. This was a divine travel talisman bestowed upon him by his master. He possessed only 3 in total, life-saving treasures meant to preserve his life. And now, for the sake of a few spirit peaches, he had expended 1. What a grievous loss. Even if 10 spirit peaches were harvested and handed entirely to him, it would still not compensate for such a treasure. How could mere peaches compare to an item that could save one's life? Yet, as matters stood, fleeing was his only option. Ling Han and the others watched and burst into laughter. Had this fellow not insisted on acting on his own, with Ling Han and Hu Nu present, why would such trouble have been necessary? At the very least, even if Ling Han could not defeat the gray-patterned leopard, Hu Nu drawing it away would have been both safer and far more efficient. Hu Nu licked her lips, drool nearly spilling as she lamented. Such a pity, Nu wanted to eat roasted leopard legs. Thus Ye Rong not only failed to render a favor, but even incurred Hu Nu's silent resentment. Qin Lian Yo made as if to rush out, yet Ling Han caught her wrist, restraining her from acting recklessly. What are you doing? Are you trying to take liberties with this lady? Ling Han rolled his eyes. What are you planning? Of course, to pluck the peaches. Qin Lian Yo stared at him as though he were a fool. Though her idol was undoubtedly powerful, his mind did not seem particularly sharp. Could he not perceive something so obvious? Do not pluck them, Ling Han said, shaking his head as he began digging at the roots instead. Qin Lian Yo gasped in astonishment. This man was truly black-hearted, not only desiring to devour the peaches, but intending to uproot the entire tree. She immediately protested. This spirit tree can only grow in specific locations. Even if you dig it up, it will not survive elsewhere. Who says so? Ling Han grinned mischievously and dug even faster. Were he not wary of damaging the spirit tree, he would have scooped it up in a single motion. His divine sense was limited and could not envelop the entire peach tree. If he dug too deeply, it would be impossible to store within the Black Tower. I have never seen anyone like you. Qin Lian Yo stared at him in stunned disbelief. This fellow was truly a bandit through and through. Of course you haven't. I am the one and only. Ling Han laughed heartily. Nu's Ling Han is the one and only. Hu Nu puffed out her chest proudly. 1 grown man and 1 little girl, both utterly swollen with pride. Qin Lian Yue mocked them inwardly, yet she had to concede that the 2 were freakish geniuses beyond normal comprehension, far surpassing the level of ordinary prodigies. Within the Middle State, only a handful of rumored freaks could compare. For instance, Heaven's Sword Sect's Yao Huiyu, Absolute Saber Sect's Small Saber King, Cloud Phoenix Sect's Dong Ling and Azure Thunder Sect's Ya Tian. Before long, Ling Han had unearthed the entire peach tree. Shoo, with a flash of light, it vanished into the Black Tower. Ah, Qin Lian Yu cried out in shock. How vast is your spatial ring to be able to contain such an enormous spirit tree? The fruit tree stood over 300 meters tall, and its root system spread equally far. There were scarcely any spatial spirit tools in the world capable of housing such dimensions. Zhu Xuan and Kanye merely smiled faintly. If this girl were to enter the Black Tower and behold the boundless expanse within, she would likely weep for her mother. Let us enter the valley and take a look. Since this was a medicinal valley, there would undoubtedly be more spirit medicine within. Ling Han intended to enrich the Black Tower further. Be cautious. I once surveyed the place from above. Though spirit medicines are plentiful inside, there are even more high-level beasts. Qin Lian Yue warned gravely. Ling Han nodded. Yet confusion flickered in his eyes. The stronger the beast, the more it prefers solitude. Why would so many gather within this mountain valley? The valley was not large, likely insufficient even for the gray-patterned leopard's territory alone, much less for multiple beasts. Hong, long, long. Before they could advance, a thunderous rumble erupted from within the valley, like 10,000 beasts charging in unison. The earth trembled violently beneath their feet. All eyes turned toward the valley. A towering plume of dust rose skyward as a horde of beasts burst forth. Damn it! We have not even entered, and they are already charging out? These beasts were of many kinds. There were fierce tigers with wings, colossal serpents with 4 legs, and azure vultures devoid of feathers yet clad in scales. Each one radiated overwhelming power, deity transformation tier. And at the forefront of this stampede was, astonishingly, a massive white rabbit half the height of a man, a purple carrot clamped in its mouth. When it came to fleeing, the rabbit proved the swiftest of all. How! Ow! The beasts roared furiously, their eyes blazing with rage as they pursued the large white rabbit. These beasts are chasing that rabbit! We are caught in the crossfire! Run!